You know that person who asks for what they want without apologizing? The one who sends the cold email, asks for the raise, puts themselves out there, gets a no, and just keeps moving? Yeah, they're not fearless. They're just not running the same emotional program as everyone else. Welcome. If you're someone who watches others do this and wonders how they survive the discomfort, you're about to understand exactly what's different about their wiring. Today, we're breaking down the psychology of people who don't fear rejection. Society calls them confident or thick-skinned, but psychology reveals something more interesting. They've decoupled their self-worth from other people's responses, and that changes everything. Here's the thing about rejection that most people don't understand. It only hurts when you've attached your value to the outcome. Think of your self-worth like a Wi-Fi signal. For most people, that signal comes from external sources. When someone says yes, the signal strengthens. When someone says no, it drops. Connection unstable, buffering, panic. But people who don't fear rejection, they've switched to a hardwired connection. Their self-worth isn't streaming from other people's approval. It's built in, stable, consistent. Imagine asking for something important and getting rejected. For most people, that no doesn't just mean the request failed. It means they failed. It means they're not good enough, not worthy enough, not valuable enough. The rejection becomes evidence of inadequacy. But people who don't fear rejection hear the same no differently. It's just information. This person said no. This opportunity wasn't the right fit. This timing didn't work. The rejection isn't about them. It's about circumstances, preferences, compatibility, 1,000 variables that have nothing to do with their inherent worth. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't natural confidence. This is learned detachment. Psychologists call this rejection sensitivity versus rejection resilience. And the difference isn't about feeling versus not feeling. It's about interpretation. Rejection-sensitive people process a no as a threat to their social standing, their belonging, their survival. Their nervous system reads rejection the way our ancestors read being cast out from the tribe, as life-threatening. Because historically, it was. But people with rejection resilience have rewired that ancient alarm system. They've trained their brain to categorize rejection differently, not as danger, not as evidence, just as data. Here's something wild. Brain imaging studies show that when rejection-resilient people get rejected, their prefrontal cortex stays active. They're still thinking, still processing, still planning the next move. But when rejection-sensitive people get rejected, their amygdala floods the system. Fight, flight, freeze. The thinking brain goes offline. And here's what nobody tells you. These people still feel the sting. They're not numb. They're not sociopaths without emotional response. They just don't let that sting rewrite their self-concept. The feeling passes through them like weather. It doesn't settle in and become their identity. Now let's talk about something deeper, the separation between action and identity. Most people conflate what they do with who they are. I asked for a raise and got rejected equals I am someone who doesn't deserve a raise. I sent a message and got ignored equals I am ignorable. The behavior and the identity become fused. But people who don't fear rejection have created a firewall between their actions and their essence. They can fail at something without becoming a failure. They can be rejected by someone without becoming rejectable. They've built what psychologists call a stable self-concept. Here's what that actually means in practice. When they get rejected, they don't spiral into existential questioning. They don't ruminate for days. They don't construct elaborate narratives about what's wrong with them. They assess what happened, extract useful information, and move forward. But there's also something uncomfortable about this superpower. It requires accepting that not everyone will like you, want you, or choose you. And that has to be okay. Most people are still trying to achieve universal approval. They're still operating from a childhood belief that if they're good enough, everyone will accept them. People who don't fear rejection have abandoned that fantasy. They know that no matter how perfect they are, some people will still say no. And they've made peace with that reality. So what do they gain from this rewiring? Studies show that people with low rejection sensitivity take more risks, build more opportunities, and achieve more of what they actually want. Not because they're luckier, because they ask more often. They apply for jobs they're not qualified for. They pitch ideas that might get shut down. They start conversations with strangers. They put their work out into the world before it's perfect, and every single time they do this, they're collecting data that rejection-sensitive people never get. But here's the hidden advantage that nobody talks about. They also form more authentic relationships. Because when you're not desperately trying to avoid rejection, you can be yourself. You can express actual opinions. You can set real boundaries. You can show up without performing. And the people who stick around, they're responding to the real you, not the carefully curated version designed to minimize rejection risk. The relationships are stronger because they're built on truth instead of fear. Here's what society romanticizes: people-pleasing, fitting in, reading the room, being liked. But what actually works? Selectivity. People who don't fear rejection understand something fundamental. Not every no is a loss. Sometimes a no is protection. Sometimes rejection saves you from the wrong opportunity, the wrong relationship, the wrong path. Society tells you to minimize rejection by playing it safe, staying small, not asking for too much. But people who don't fear rejection have discovered that playing it safe guarantees you'll never get what you actually want. The safe path is just slow rejection, the rejection of your own potential. But here's the nuance. For some people, not fearing rejection is liberation. For others, it's avoidance of a different kind. If you don't fear rejection because you've genuinely separated your worth from outcomes and you're pursuing what matters to you, that's resilience. That's emotional maturity. But if you don't fear rejection because you've stopped caring about anything, because you've numbed yourself to all feedback, because you've decided connection isn't worth the risk, that's different. That's not fearlessness. That's disconnection. Here's how you know the difference. Do you not fear rejection because you trust yourself regardless of the outcome? Or do you not fear rejection because you've stopped hoping for anything? One is power. The other is protection that's calcified into isolation. So who are people who don't fear rejection? They're not born confident. They're not naturally thick-skinned. They've trained themselves to separate their self-worth from other people's responses. They've learned to process no as information, not identity. And they've accepted that being themselves means some people won't choose them. And that's the price of authenticity. If you're someone who asks anyway, who puts yourself out there, who gets rejected and keeps moving, you're not reckless. You're not desperate. You've just figured out that your worth isn't determined by who says yes to you. It's determined by whether you say yes to yourself. What's the rejection that changed how you see yourself? Or are you still afraid to ask for what you want? Drop a comment. I want to know what's holding you back or what freed you. And if you want to understand the psychology of people who stay disciplined when no one's watching, that video is going to show you how self-trust gets built in the first place. Click it. One reframe, one rule, one move. Reframe. Rejection isn't proof you're not good enough. It's proof you tried for something that mattered. Rule. Separate the action from your identity. You can be rejected without becoming rejectable. Move. This week, ask for one thing you've been afraid to ask for, not to get a yes. To prove to yourself that a no won't destroy you.